Boa tarde, a gente está super feliz de receber, honrado, e aliás, todo o bairro da Moca está honrado de receber aqui a visita de dois ilustres italianos, ou ítalo-brasileiros, talvez, professor Giorgio Basilici, conhecido de todos, com certeza, nosso velho amigo que está na Università de Campinas, há 70 anos, mais ou menos.
69.
69, vai fazer 70 ano que vem. E professor Massimo Moretti, da Università di Bari. Moretti está aqui em São Paulo através de um projeto FAPESP, coordenado pelo George, como pesquisador associado no projeto FAPESP, que investiga mudanças climáticas no passado, né? Não estamos falando dessas mudanças do Holoceno, mas no passado. E o Moretti, além disso, é editor da revista Sedimentary Research. Sedimentary Geology, eu sempre troco o nome. Sedimentary Geology. Então, ele vai dar, acho que vai, né? Dar algumas dicas também sobre...
Sim.
Sim. Vai dar algumas dicas para todos nós sobre como submetermos o artigo sem que ele seja rejeitado. Cara, não de cara, né? E... além disso, ele é um dos grandes especialistas, já está aqui, né? Soft-sediment Deformation Structures, que também vai ser assunto da palestra dele. Então, a gente queria agradecer muito ao Giorgio por ter trazido o professor Moretti por ter aguentado o Giorgio durante a viagem, e o palco é seu. Obrigado.
Obrigado, falou um pouco de português. Obrigado ao professor Basilici e obrigado ao professor Giannini por la apresentação, muito gentil. Eu vou falar em inglês, porque não falo muito bem português. The surprise is that my English is better than my Portuguese. So, why are we interested in soft-sediment deformation? Why there is someone which study soft-sediment deformation? They are interesting since because they form during a period which is poorly known, from sedimentation to diagenesis. During this period, during this time, sediments can be subjected to many different trigger agents that can deform the sediments. Normally, this process is not present, and the stages from sedimentation and diagenesis are only represented by consolidation, a very simple process which is related with the decrease in porosity and expulsion of water. For these reasons, the soft-sediment deformation are a very good record of processes that occur during this poorly known period. To observe soft-sediment deformation, we need the simultaneous presence of these three elements: mechanism deformation, we will see liquefaction and defluidization mainly, a drive force system, and a trigger agent. Mechanism of deformation is well explained from Allen in two different very famous books about sedimentology. This second qualitative definition is very useful for students that their ordinary experience is to walk on the sands of a beach, and they can support in a very simple way their load. But in some condition, the same sands with the same density water saturation and porosity, can behave as a fluid. This process occurs when liquefaction and fluidization induces a loss of shear strength in the sediments, in the soft sediments. They are, by this point of view, very similar. They are some process which are able to reduce or put the interstitial pressure so high that the shear resistance is equal to 0. Liquefaction occurs in a closed system, and fluidization needs of a continuous flow directed upward. The final effect is the same. Grain are not at contact, so the friction is equal to 0. Why is important a driving force system? It was invented, it was discovered by a researcher which is called Owen, also our colleague worked with him. A driving force system can be explained in a very simple way by these two sketches. In the first one, there is a slope, and after liquefaction, it forms a slide, or some slumps, it's the same. The same sediment, without a gravitational body force, suffers complete liquefaction, but without a driving force system, these liquefaction do not induce some observable deformation. Okay, so the driving force system is is fundamental to observe deformation. The number of driving force system is very low. There are few driving force systems in natural systems. The gravitational body force is the presence of a slope. So slides and a slump form in this way. Also, unequal loading is responsible for the formation of some kind of load structures. The very clear example of ripples migrating on a soft substrate induce liquefaction of the substrate and produce some unequal loading, and the load structures are more or less a mirror of the initial structures. Another very widespread and stable driving force system is the unstable density gradient. In the sedimentary record, there are a lot of superposition of denser sediments on less denser or less dense sediments or units. But this kind of system needs liquefaction to start a readjustment of the density. When they are solid, no readjustment occurs. Some soft sediment deformation that was described also by your colleagues. They are related with the shear stresses we checked on liquefied sediments that have an original primary cross-lamination. Last, driving force system is the presence of permeability barriers. The presence of permeability barriers is also very widespread in our sedimentary succession. it could be represented only by a normal variation in grain size vertically, large dikes, Lycian pillar in turbidites, and in present day sea bottom are formed directly by fluidization, which is induced by the presence of permeability barriers. In the first two cases, it's water that is forced to move upward. In the case of POCMAX, gases, methane is responsible for the deformation of sea bottom. But what are the trigger agents that could induce liquefaction and fluidization in soft sediment? Some trigger agent could be internal to the sedimentary environment. Other kind of natural processes are external to the natural environments. Normally, sedimentologists are interested in soft sediment deformation that form as induced by deposition, erosion, or something similar. Paleoseismic studies are related with the recognition of soft sediment deformation structures induced by seismic shocks. Some trigger mechanism for soft sediment deformation. The overloading is probably the most widespread trigger agent. The rapid input of sediments on a soft substrate and saturated, well saturated, can induce liquefaction at a given thickness of the substrate. They are called, probably that the students remember the Bauma sequence. The base of a turbidite is characterized by load cast. They form thanks to this kind of process. We were studies with Owen some overloading processes in a delta succession. These are the soft sediment deformation are represented by elongated load structures and pillows. It was very simple to relate, to find a relationship between paleocurrents and the orientation of these elongated structures. So in this case, we don't need the presence of an external trigger. They are directly induced by sedimentation in a deltaic bar. The same in turbidites in a siliciclastic ramp of the Godit spacing. Soft sediment deformation are represented by elongated load structures and a stunning field of pillows that could be studied in section in a 3D manner, rotating the pillows, and they are very, you can observe they are very asymmetrical in their development. Also in this case, the orientation of the elongated load cast and the asymmetrical form of pillows corresponds to the presence of a slope and currents flows directed in the same direction. So this is the model, which is very simple. There is a force related with the flow and at the same time liquefaction in the substrate. these asymmetrical load structures are very widespread, are not very described in literature, but they are very widespread. The Grèce d'Anneau is the place in which, the formation in which Bauma was introducing the main concepts about turbiditic flows. And as you can see, they are asymmetrical. So we were making a very simple analog model, 2 different units with different bulk density. And when liquefaction starts, soft-sediment deformation therefore are elongated along the slope or asymmetrical in the same direction. This kind of process are very frequent, and we were establishing some very simple relationship between the thickness of sediments which are deposited with a rapid sedimentation, deposition with the high sedimentation rate, with the thickness of sediment that are directly liquefacted by this flow, by this deposition. It's very simple to demonstrate that the thickness of the upper unit, which is deposited in a sudden way, is more or less of the same scale of the substrate which suffers complete liquefaction. Also in system with the permeability barriers, the process of sedimentation which induces liquefaction is very widespread and frequent. We have a barrier of permeability. All the turbidites have at the top a rapid decrease in permeability. Sigma is the rapid input of sediments on this very simple system. It's very simple to calculate that after 10 hours, the sediments in this system are still with a very high interstitial pressure. So they are prone to deform in the presence of some kind of driving force system. So these are the conclusions of this kind of study. Also, internal to the sedimentary environments are liquefaction and fluidization processes that are induced by storm waves, different in pressure between crest and trough on a sandy deposit, like in a beach, induces a sudden variation of the interstitial pressure in the marine substrate, in the seabottom, and this difference of pressure is indicated by this formula. Normally, very permeable sands can dissipate easily this interstitial pressure, but if only a very small percentage of the overpressure is not dissipated, during a storm, this induces the complete liquefaction of the seabottom. It's a process that can be observed in present-day systems. So we were thinking, why is not recorded in the sedimentary succession? Some relationship is very useful to calculate the maximum of these different in pressure, and this is comprised between a sea bottom, which is deep from 10 to 15 meters. We were studying some sedimentary succession in which soft-sediment deformation structure were interpreted as seismically induced. With a detailed facies analysis, it's very simple to associate soft-sediment deformation to determine specific paleoenvironments. Earthquake are produces effects in a very large area and in all sedimentary environments. The close association between some facies and soft-sediment deformation is a clear record that soft-sediment deformation are related to an internal trigger mechanism. These are the soft-sediment deformation. As you can see, they are very similar to ball and pillows that we were observed before. Many examples of soft-sediment deformation in different deposits, but as you can see, there is a clear relationship between facies and soft-sediment deformation. So it's very simple to demonstrate that these are related with an internal process, and this internal process are the liquefaction induced by storm waves. And an interesting part of these studies is that the depth of liquefaction could be associated with the wave height at different bathymetries. So virtually we can measure the thickness of liquefied sediments and to evaluate when we have an exact area of the paleobathymetry the wave height. These are the results. I live in Puglia. It's a completely calcareous area, and karstic processes are very widespread. So we described some very large soft-sediment deformation, which was related directly to the karstic action and the collapse of the substrate, which is deeply karstified. As you can see, soft-sediment deformation are always the same. These are vertically elongated load structures. This is the results of facies analysis. Deformation start here when the sedimentary system was just in the offshore or offshore transition area. So we were describing a karstic collapse, but in condition of marine environments. This is not very widespread, since normally karstic collapses occur in a continental setting. More or less the same we were described in present day area. Mar Piccolo and Mar Grande are interested by vertical artesian springs with a very high pressure. They are soft-sediment deformation is represented by very large slides. They could be recognized only with the sub-bottom profiler. In the past, in the same area, some observing some geophysical profile Other authors was interpreting this kind of features as tectonic. This area is completely stable, so these features are directly related with the presence of these artesian springs, which are able to create large conduits, vertical conduits, which are able to make erosion in this kind of sediments. Also, in tidal succession, the migration of bars, of tidal bars, can induce liquefaction and the formation of soft sediment deformation with different processes and in different parts of the bars, but many soft sediment deformation with different morphologies can be related directly to the migrating tidal bars. So this is could be directly observed as soft sediment deformation, not studying seismites, but directly observing the tectonics. In this case, I don't need to go there. In this case, we can observe reverse faults that form by the movement of a normal fault, or I'm sure you know the Neptunian dikes that form when there is a soft sediment deformation, soft sediment on a rigid substratum, which suffered distension. But the soft sediment deformation could be related also with external trigger agent, like the seismically induced soft sediment deformation. We were trying to model in laboratory some kind of seismites, reading in a detailed way the literature. We were describing also in laboratory the same morphologies which are interpreted as seismites. Results of this study are very simple. It seems that in a realistic condition, we used a test tank which allow a one-to-one scale reproduction of seismites, very large, and using a spatial specific shaking table which is able to move in a three-dimensional manner, so modeling a real earthquake, we were able to produce more or less the same soft sediment deformation which are interpreted in literature as seismites. But the most interesting thing is this one. When you have not a driving force system, you cannot observe deformation. This is a very stupid conclusion, but it's very important for the paleoseismic studies. We were describing a lot of seismites around the world, but only in environments where overloading, storm wave, karstic action can be excluded. The internal processes are very ordinary. The presence of storm waves in a beach is a very frequent and ordinary process. The presence of karstic collapses in a region which is completely calcified is very ordinary. We can think in an external trigger agent only when in the natural sedimentary environment is not present a possible internal trigger agent. So our studies are concentrated in environments where I'm sorry about my colleagues, where he's tired. I can understand him since it's the third time that he follow this presentation, so he is justified. So we were studying seismites and interpreting them as seismical inducers of sediment deformation only in environments in which where there are not present very ordinary and normal internal trigger agents. Some detail on this study in the Couliar basin in the Betic Cordillera. We found giant seismites. They are in fluvial lacustrine deposits, Pliocene, fluvial lacustrine. They are enormous. They are the most the biggest soft-sediment deformation which are described in literature. And we were interested in to demonstrate that large dimension of deformation is not related with the magnitude of the earthquakes. Morphology and dimension of soft-sediment deformation is not related directly to the magnitude. It seems an obvious concept, but the literature is full of papers that make a relationship between dimension, morphology of soft-sediment deformation and paleomagnitude of the earthquakes. In particular, these outcrops in this desertic area can be followed in a very large area, and it was possible to hypothesize the presence, no, not the presence, we already know the presence, but discussing the possible source of the earthquakes that form the soft-sediment deformation, and they, in present day, are able to produce only moderate earthquakes. So there is not a relationship between magnitude and dimension of soft-sediment deformation. These are the conclusions of the study of seismites. So the general conclusion, I have already talked about these concepts. We can we can study, analyze seismites only when we are sure that ordinary processes are not active in our succession, in our area of study. So only lagunal, lacustrine environments could be studied looking for the sedimentary record of seismites. Thank you very much. Me lo dico da solo. Some question?
Comment about the size of structures. There is no direct relationship with the intensity of earthquake, but what would be the factors controlling size of deformations?
As I was showing at the first part at the beginning of my presentation, dimension and morphology of soft-sediment deformation are only related with the driving force system. So if you have a very large difference in density, in bulk density between two units, a magnitude of 5, which is the lower limit for liquefaction, will form very large load structures, and this limit of magnitude could be also increased M6, 7, 8, but the liquefaction in the final structures is dependent only from the difference from the gradient of density between these two curves. And the same occurs in the other kind of driving forces.
I have a question. So when we talk about stirring up very force like an earthquake, does the earthquake needs to be the focal? Let me take this question. The soft sediment deformation structures need to be right above the earthquake, or they can be like some kilometers away from the focal point of the earthquake. Is there any implication regarding that?
Yes, this is another interesting topic. The effects of earthquake are ubiquitous in an area, but liquefaction effects are localized, and this is the result of presence of some given environments where the grain size and degree of saturation of sediments are perfect for liquefaction. And during modern earthquakes, liquefaction is present only in rivers or in parts in which the artesian spring, the spring is very close to the upper surface. So the distribution is only related with patches at the end. But Basilici, you have a question. It's impossible after the third.
Okay. When I was sleeping, I dreamed. Said that the seismic, that the formation are related to the fault position.
Yeah.
So, I would like to know first, what kind of elements can allow to define the fault position, and a contrary question, that is, if you have these elements, you can demonstrate that the formation is related to the earthquakes, or it does. That is.
Yeah. In this case, it was very simple. The presence of these faults is already known in literature, but we don't know if during the Pliocene they were active. We know that they were active, but we don't know if they were seismic faults. The distance from the fault, it's very simple to analyze. There are empirical relationships between the distance from the fault. To understand why there is a maximum distance, you have to think on the magnitude which decrease with distance, and when you reach m equal to 5, this is the limit. So you can observe liquefaction at a certain distance. But in this case, we know also that this fault historically suffered only, induces only some moderate magnitude earthquakes. So we know that a very moderate activity can induce giant soft sediment deformation. This is a test for the variation of the dimension is not related with the magnitude.
So does it mean that if you have the lateral variation of the deformation, this could be triggered by earthquake?
This is very interesting, but
Thank you very much.
yes, but it is also in this case a detailed facies analysis can help you to distinguish the lateral distribution. I try to explain it better. If you have an environment in which deposits are interfingered, you are sure that in the place in which you have shales, it's impossible to observe liquefaction. And you will observe liquefaction only in the lenses, in sand lenses.
Yeah, but if you have like an hypothetical situation where you have like very large tidal flat, where you have homogeneous sediments, you would expect that the dimension of the structures would increase as farther away from the fault you go, would it?
If in the tidal environment you have some variations, some driving force system, you will observe deformation only in these places. If this tidal flat is completely homogeneous, you will observe only during present-day earthquakes a complete liquefaction. But if you make an excavation, sediments are only homogeneous without detectable deformation.
Yeah, but like if you have a different density, but over a large area,
Yeah.
wouldn't you expect the decreasing of the dimensions of the structure?
A decreasing of dimension if they are load structures,
Yeah.
since the thickness of the lower unit will decrease with distance. But the final soft sediment deformation will be more related with contrast of density. So it's very difficult to trace a difference in dimension of morphology with the distance. It's more easy to think that these patches will pass laterally to other patches which are not able to suffer liquefaction. That this is normal.
In case you have a shock wave propagation, and this wave found a piece of basement that can reduce the whole. Maybe can shape more, not necessarily increasing for distance.
Yeah.
Because they just fall a barrier.
Yeah. This is more or less the same reasoning. You have some differences in the lithology or in the elevation of the substrate, and is this structural element that control the effect of liquefaction. But they are also controlled by facies variations, the lateral facies variation. So you have to put two data, which are very different, to find the possible area which can be subject to liquefaction. Modern seismic protection is made using these two data to find the area which are more susceptible to liquefaction. In Italy, there are studies which study this kind of processes only in the towns, but they are very useful, since the local effect of a earthquake is related with the morphology of substrate and the facies.
In case of wet oil deposition systems, based on your experience, what's the most common triggering process to produce deformation structures? We have some cases in Iramboia formation, George Loss, Iramboia formation, which you can see the interdune deposits intensely deformed, but at the same time, the base of the upper face with cross stratification have a little of deformation too, and the top of the cross stratification under the interdune deposit have a little of deformation too.
Yeah.
What does it mean?
Aeolian deposits, as tidal deposits, could be deformed also by internal processes like the migration of dunes. But you need some water to have liquefaction and fluidization. So the interdune area is perfect to have a very near water table. Okay. But aeolian dunes are very dynamic. So dynamic. So the migration of dunes can, in a very simple way, to delay the effect of deformations. If the deformation is induced by an external trigger like an earthquake, the migration of dunes is ordinary, and it's very probable that this migration could obliterate completely the effects of liquefaction, fluidization, something similar. In the back dune areas, it's very probable that the same earthquake could be recorded. But in the area in which the dunes migrate, it's very difficult to think how to fossilize them, how to preserve them.
So if you have a situation, wet the island dune field, we wouldn't be able to objectively look at the deformation structure. We wouldn't be able to determine if it's earthquake or only the shifting gradient because of the dune migration. We wouldn't be able to say, oh, it is an earthquake. No, it could be an autogenic process.
Yes, yes. And the only key criteria is very obvious. The internal trigger agents are ordinary. And the earthquake have a time of recurrence which is larger than ordinary processes. Yeah. It's very strange to think in a process which have a reference time of a century, that some other triggers which is semi-annual.
Yeah. Almost seasonal.
If not, you have another subject to us.
Well, thank you for your patience during the first one.
It was great.
Giorgio nem roncou.
This speech is thinking like something which can be useful to young people. I'm sure that you, professor, are already know this kind of concept. So, our journal, I say our since Giorgio Basilici too is one of the chief editors of this journal. During time, the chief editors change in a very fast way. We have 3 years that could be renewed for other 3 years, so no more the 6 years as chief editors. This is very important since it's fundamental that people make research when read papers. If very old people is a chief editor, more or less it's very probable that he is very far away from new researches, something, and so on. So during last years, we have changed the organization. There is not a managing editor, and we are 4 chief editors. And there is Catherine, which is the older, not in age, but only as a chief editor, which distributed the manuscripts to the other chief editors. We are particularly proud of the editorial board. Many countries, women and men more or less in the same proportion, and lot of young people. Young people are very important. I will show you as starting the work on the paper, writing papers, reviewing papers, and so on. The proposal of special issues is very important for your growth during time. Some numbers of sedimentary geology. Data from 2024 are relative to 6 months, so forget this data. As you can see, the rejection rate is very high, so we read a lot of manuscripts, but only 10% of papers are sent to the reviewers. If we look at the continents, we can observe that Asia is the most important contributor to the journal. But if we look at the accepted papers and the rejected papers, it's the same. You can see how number of submitted papers is not related with the final acceptation. This is interesting since you can see how Brazil is rapidly increasing the number of submission, and in this case is well visible how the percentage of papers which are accepted by sedimentary geology is increasing in Brazil and also in other countries. I'm sure you know the site score and the impact factor. I don't read the definition. I'm sure that you know them. But I want you put your attention to the years that are considered 4 years and 2 years. During most university competition, your curriculum is judged, is considered by a commission during last 20 years to become a professor. I was publishing in a very poor journals that now have a very big site score or impact factor. So it's very difficult to imagine, to forecast what are the right journals in which publish. In general, the impact factor is very constant in the classical journals. For sedimentologist, sedimentology, and sedimentary geology are very constant in the impact factor. This is a demonstration, a test of this constants. We are very fast in the first reply of the editors. An average value of 3 days. During this very fast period, we reply to the authors, and this time contains also the passage from Elsevier directly to the editor. So we are very fast. Sedimentary geology is organized in a very atypical way. This is the submission. The editors, the chief editors, make a very hard job to reject papers which are not interesting for the journals. This is very important since high quality papers can be sent to the reviewers. Reviewers, maybe some of you can confirm this impression. Reviewers are very few, and reviewers which work in a very well way are few. So we have to we have to send them manuscript that could be handled and they are of high quality. We cannot send papers which we are sure that will be rejected by reviewers. And this is a special organization of sedimentary geology. Most of journals have a single journal manager or a chief editor, and associate editors receive papers and manuscripts from these chief editor. Normally, the associate editors send directly to the reviewers the manuscript. This is very time-consuming, and people which work reading, reviewing the papers of that quality are very busy during time, and at the end are forced to refuse to review the papers. The editor-in-chief participate to the publication of a paper in two phases. The first one is the possible rejection, or they can send the paper, the manuscript, to the reviewers, and in the final decision. The reasons why, because the papers, the manuscripts are directly rejected. They are very stupid, very obvious, but as you have seen before, lot of paper are rejected by us directly, since this kind of simple criteria are not respected. The most stupid criteria is the detailed reading of the deed for the authors. The format. Text is double-spaced, margins, line numbers, page number, and so on. They are very stupid, but we cannot send manuscript to the reviewers if these elements are not present. It's very difficult to make a reviewer without cite a page, without cite a line number. It's impossible. So in a PDF, it's very difficult to make comments if the lines are very close each other. And this is a reason to reject. It's possible to send directly to the reviewers. Other indications are about format, and are also this one very obvious, and they are very important not for the phase of acceptation or rejection of the papers, but are very important for the time for publication. This is something which is related with the work of Elsevier. They underline references which are not cited in the reference list and so on. And the time for publication can be very extended if all these format elements are not respected. So your paper is accepted with minor revision. You are very fast to make this revision, and your paper is not published for a very long time. This is very important. The manuscript should be exactly corresponding to the aims and scope of the journal. And it should be a significant contribution to the field of study. Your introduction, your state of the art have to demonstrate that you know very well the literature, and you can add something to the knowledge which is very well known. Other important element is the number of data. For example, samples. The authors in their methods and methodology, material methodology, and so on, have to demonstrate that the number of samples or their location is able to cover a concept which is very obvious, the representativity of the samples. So it's not important the number, but how the author can demonstrate the representativity of their samples. A new problem, the overlapping of texts with previous papers. it's new since many Elsevier and other editorial societies do not allow the overlapping between papers with previous papers. This is very a very strange rule, since this kind of overlapping is considered also if the previous paper is yours. So you have to rewrite your paragraphs using different words, sentences, and you are forced to make this only for copyright problems. I was mentioning this kind of phases of young people. To be an editor-in-chief, you have to be a good author, a good reviewer, guest editor for special issues. You have to make a proposal to be part of the editorial board, and people which have all these stages can be chosen as editor-in-chief. More or less the same career was, it's similar. My career is very similar to.
No, your career not, because you
as
presented yourself,
in,
and I was coach.
I mean on editorial activities. Thank you very much.
Posso falar alguma coisa?
Sei un altro editor-in-chief, you are.
Não, eu queria falar algumas coisas. Eu acho que você não tem tudo para mim. Posso? Again. Na verdade, não é para mim, para falar algumas coisas. So você.
Pode falar in
English. In English. Yes. No, it's okay. It's right. The next.
Ah, next.
Okay. Okay. One of the very important things that there is to define the speech of this magazine, this journal. Then, when arrived the decision of the reviewer, is the editor that decides. So this is a very hard work for us. We have to do that what after the revision of the authors, we have to read the revision, we have to verify what the reviewer said and decide. Most of the case is good, is assumption. That is so for that the author, me also, you have to write very well with a very convincing sentences and ideas to convince the editor to accept. In these 2 years, I had only 2 cases where I detailed some clear idea from the revision of the authors and some aspect of the review. But for that, it's very rapid. I think that this is one of the reasons that many rapid and free. This is one of the reasons that people choose to publish in Geology. And in other slides, the 2 next please. Okay, so what is the idea of the desk rejection? Because it's very high. Sometimes it's more than 70%. Manuscript format, how too many years go, as very easy. That is, you can forget, for example, to put, but it's no problem. Give you, and you send again. This is absolutely. Also, for example, plagiarism. It's not a very big problem because you have to do voluntarily the plagiarism. If you don't do, no problem. Number of samples. This is very complicated for us. Because I don't know. Because it's something that for provenance. I don't study provenance. People say that I have only 7 samples. But the 7 samples with hundreds of spots. So this is important. So this is something of complicated. But to the very pay attention to international interest. Most or the totality of the rejection of that. If in your conclusion, above all your conclusion, people don't see something that could be interesting for a large aspect, that is some tales of students, so it's a rejection. So this is very important. I have a classes in Campinas with writing a certificate marketing, because it's one of the very important things that I try to transmit to my students. Don't speak something about the local city, but you can find the local in each case, sure. It's only to think, to have a fantasy, power to fantasy. Okay. Thank you very much.
This is not a question. This is
No, ma io queria fazer mais uma lista.
I'm joking. Thank you.
My opinion.
Well, I'm very afraid presenting this, making this presentation, since my main fear is that one say, I have a question. Why have you rejected me?
I will make now this question. Regarding the avoid the plagiarism,
Yeah.
you said about we must have care to avoid repeat our stress of our previous
Yeah.
articles. But in the case of the methods, how much tolerant you are? Completely.
Yes, but this is a very strange fact. For us, this is not a problem, since we use more or less the same kind of sentences, the same name of the instruments. But the copyright is very hard with the rules. You have not to put same sentences. It's not a scientific problem. It's a copyright economical administrative problem. So you have to, there are free software that you can use to see the overlapping, and you can change rapidly the text to decrease this overlap. It's not an important.
And do you use a software to check?
Yes. Yeah. And we receive directly the total.
Yeah.
We are tired.
Regarding plagiarism, like if you have like a sedimentary fascist photograph, just like short cross diet sets, can you repeat about different manuscripts that be considered plagiarism?
Sorry, I'm completely.
Like if you like a sedimentary fascist photograph, like if you have a table of 9 sedimentary fascists, one of these you use them on another page. Is that considered plagiarism?
Yes, also.
It is?
Yes, yes. It's I know it's a very strange rule, but you can use it. But modifying the previous photos or making something saying this is not the same. The general rule also for the text is that you can use the entire sentences, putting them in italic. So you cannot cite another author or yourself putting a text in italic. No. It's a stupid rule, but it's a economical rule.
Che povo brasileiro? Povo italiano.
Non italiano, sono morto.
Ah, povo da moda.
Well, if we have not more questions, many thanks for the attention. The hour.
Yeah.
That's great.